My beloved child, become still and hear this without fear. You may forgive before trust is rebuilt, and you may love your family without giving them unlimited access to your time, your home, your thoughts, or your peace. Forgiveness is not a command to remain unprotected. It releases vengeance from your hands. It does not place your life back into hands that have not yet learned to handle it with care. I know the guilt beneath your questions. You wonder whether saying no makes you dishonoring, whether stepping back makes you cold, whether requiring change makes you unchristian. Because they are family, you have felt pressure to endure what is destructive and call that endurance love. Yet when you finally created distance, resentment followed you, and the relationship continued inside your heart through rehearsed arguments, imagined judgments, and the ache of what should have been. I do not condemn you for wanting peace, but I am teaching you that peace is guarded by forgiveness and wisdom together. You do not have to choose between a hardened heart and an unguarded life. You can refuse hatred without returning to chaos. You can reject retaliation, public shaming, and contempt without excusing repeated harm. You can pray for someone and still decline the conditions under which they keep wounding you. Do not rush to declare that you know every motive in another heart. Do not turn every painful disagreement into spiritual warfare, and do not minimize a destructive pattern merely because it comes through someone whose blood you share. Conduct matters. Fruit matters. Truth matters. Time matters. As it is written, you are to guard your heart, for from it flow the issues of life. Guarding is not the same as hating. Wisdom is not revenge. We will look at Joseph, who shows us why mercy may wait for evidence of change. At David, who shows us how to refuse vengeance while remaining beyond another person's reach. And at Jesus, whose perfect love never required indiscriminate entrustment. Each will answer a different question about forgiveness, trust, distance, and access. So breathe, beloved. You are not required to defend their behavior, and you are not permitted to feed your bitterness. There is another way, truthful, peaceful, patient, and firm. But to walk it, you must first name what happened accurately, without exaggerating the wound, denying the wound, or turning the person who caused it into a monster. Peace cannot protect what truth is forbidden to identify. My beloved child, naming the wound begins with describing what occurred, not deciding what secret darkness lives in another person. Perhaps you have known jealousy, rejection, manipulation, broken promises, repeated violations of your limits, or emotional pressure disguised as concern. Perhaps affection was offered when you complied and withdrawn when you did not. Perhaps you learned to preserve the family image while your own experience was questioned, softened, or pushed aside. I see how exhausting that has been. But listen carefully. Not every painful relationship carries the same kind of danger. An ordinary disagreement is not the same as immaturity. Immaturity is not the same as a misunderstanding that can be repaired. A misunderstanding is not the same as entrenched dysfunction. Entrenched dysfunction is not the same as deliberate manipulation, and none of these should be confused with immediate danger. Wisdom responds according to what is actually present. Do not call a relative demonic merely because they oppose you. Do not declare that every envious look is an assignment against your destiny, or that every difficult conversation is evidence of spiritual persecution. Pain can tempt you to create certainty where you possess only suspicion. That certainty may feel powerful for a moment, but it can harden grief into hostility and make honest discernment impossible. Yet do not move to the other extreme. Family status does not cleanse harmful conduct. Religious words do not make coercion holy. Appeals to loyalty do not excuse patterns that repeatedly produce fear, confusion, humiliation, or harm. Compassion is not pretending. Honor is not silence purchased at the cost of truth. Slow down. Ask simpler questions. What was actually said? What repeatedly happened? Were your reasonable limits respected, mocked, or tested? When harm was named, did the person accept responsibility, shift blame, or punish you for speaking? If an apology was offered, did changed conduct endure beyond the emotional moment? Look at repetition. Look at accountability. Look at whether respect remains when you say no. You may not know why someone behaves as they do. Their conduct may come from fear, pride, habit, woundedness, control, or motives you cannot see. You do not need to solve the hidden heart in order to respond wisely to visible fruit. Humility says, I will not claim what I cannot know. Truth says, I will not deny what has repeatedly occurred. And if you face threats, violence, stalking, forced confinement, or any immediate danger, move toward safety and seek appropriate help from trusted local people and services. Do not remain exposed merely to prove that you forgive, but do not use the language of danger to enlarge every ordinary conflict either. Let your words remain proportionate, sober, and clean. Now the wound can be named without making the wounded person cruel. The next question is this: which parts of healing can you choose before me, and which parts require the other person's willing participation? To answer that, you must stop placing forgiveness, reconciliation, trust, and access behind the same door. My beloved child, hear the answer clearly. Some healing begins with a decision you can make before me, but relational restoration cannot be carried by your willingness alone. Much of your guilt has come from using one word, forgiveness, to describe several different things. When those things are confused, you feel commanded to offer immediately what wisdom says must be rebuilt slowly. Forgiveness governs your heart. It is the surrender of personal vengeance to me. It is the refusal to let hatred become your ruler, to keep collecting the debt in your imagination, or to make another person's suffering the condition of your peace. Forgiveness does not call evil good. It does not rewrite the past, cancel every consequence, or require you to act as though nothing happened. It releases your claim to revenge while allowing truth to remain true. Reconciliation is different. Reconciliation is the repair of relationship, and relationship involves more than one will. You may become willing to reconcile, speak honestly, listen carefully, and pursue peace. But you cannot confess for another person, accept responsibility in their place, or produce mutual honesty through your own longing. Repair ordinarily requires truth, willingness, and meaningful participation from both sides. One person can open the way toward reconciliation. One person cannot complete it alone. Trust is different again. Trust is confidence formed by demonstrated character. It grows when words and conduct agree, when responsibility replaces excuses, when limits are respected, and when change continues after the emotion of an apology has passed. Trust is not a ceremonial gift owed because someone is family. It is not proof that your forgiveness is sincere. An apology may begin a process, but time and consistent fruit reveal whether confidence can safely grow. Access concerns what another person is permitted to share in your life: your time, your attention, your private concerns, your home, your decisions, and your physical presence. A boundary defines your participation. It may say which conversations you will enter, when you will respond, where you will meet, what behavior will end an interaction, or what subjects are no longer open for discussion. A boundary does not command another person's heart. It tells the truth about what you will do. It must not become punishment, humiliation, or a spiritual disguise for control. Sometimes that boundary includes safe distance. Distance may mean less frequent contact, limited settings, temporary separation, contact conditioned on respectful conduct, or prolonged absence when repeated harm makes ordinary closeness unwise. Do not prescribe the same distance for every wound. Let the response fit the conduct, the risk, and the fruit that follows. Access can widen when change becomes durable, or remain narrow when the pattern continues. As it is written in Romans 12, "As far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone, and do not take revenge, but leave judgment to me." Do you see? You are responsible for the peace you can pursue, the vengeance you can surrender, and the integrity of your own response. You are not responsible for manufacturing repentance, reliability, or mutual repair in another person. So let your heart release revenge today, beloved, even if the relationship must wait. Mercy may be real, while access remains measured. Forgiveness may be complete in its purpose, while reconciliation remains unfinished. And now you are ready to see this wisdom inside a family story. Joseph offered mercy, yet he did not treat untested words as proven change. My beloved child, look now at Joseph, and let his story quiet the pressure that tells you mercy must become immediate closeness. His brothers had sold him and concealed what they had done. Their betrayal did not touch Joseph alone. It carried grief into their father's life and left the household living beneath a lie. Genesis 37 does not ask you to pretend that family harm becomes small merely because years have passed. When those brothers later stood before Joseph in Egypt, he recognized them, but they did not recognize him. He did not immediately disclose his identity, erase the history, and restore the relationship in a single moment. Genesis 42 through 44 unfolds through time, guarded interaction, observation, and deep emotion held beneath restraint. Joseph listened. Joseph watched. Joseph wept privately. Tenderness was present, but tenderness did not force him to abandon discernment. Do you see, beloved? A soft heart is not the same as hurried trust. Feeling compassion does not require you to ignore the questions that only conduct can answer. Had these men merely become better speakers, or had something within their way of relating truly changed? Joseph did not have to answer from longing alone. The evidence emerged gradually. The brothers acknowledged their guilt concerning Joseph. They began to connect their present distress with the brother whose anguish they had once disregarded. Then Judah, who had participated in the earlier betrayal, stood before Joseph and offered himself in Benjamin's place, rather than return home while another vulnerable brother was lost. The family pattern was no longer repeating in precisely the same way. Where a brother had once been surrendered for the sake of others, Judah was now willing to surrender himself for a brother. This is not a command to create hidden trials for your relatives or manipulate them into proving their love. Joseph's actions belong to the circumstances of Joseph's story. They are not a universal boundary formula. The wisdom is simpler. Do not let guilt rush what truth and time must reveal. Listen for responsibility. Observe how the person treats someone vulnerable. Notice whether changed words become changed choices. In Genesis 45, Joseph finally disclosed himself. His restraint gave way to weeping, provision, welcome, and renewed relationship. Mercy became generous because mercy had never died within him. But the reopening of closeness unfolded after the past was faced and different fruit appeared. Reconciliation was not purchased by pretending. It grew in the presence of truth. And years later, when his brothers feared retaliation, Joseph still did not rename their betrayal. In Genesis 50, he said that they had intended evil against him, while recognizing that I had brought good beyond their intention. He named the wrong, refused revenge, comforted them, and provided for their households. He did not seize my place as final judge. So remain hopeful without becoming naive. Trust may grow where repentance becomes visible and change endures. But what if the harmful conduct continues and closeness remains dangerous? Then look next to David, who honored Saul without remaining within Saul's reach. My beloved child, consider now what mercy looks like when harmful conduct remains active. Saul repeatedly pursued David, seeking to take his life, and David repeatedly departed. In 1 Samuel 19 through 24, and again in chapter 26, distance was not evidence that David lacked faith. Leaving was the proportionate response to continuing danger. He did not prove loyalty by standing where the next spear could reach him. Yet David's distance did not become concealed hatred. When opportunities came to kill Saul, David refused to take personal vengeance. He continued to recognize the position Saul had been given, even while speaking truth about the injustice of being hunted. He would not destroy Saul, but neither would he confuse respect for Saul's office with trust in Saul's conduct. Do you see the distinction? David could spare the man without surrendering himself to the pattern. He could answer danger without becoming dangerous. He could keep his conscience clean while keeping meaningful space between himself and someone whose behavior had repeatedly shown that closeness was unsafe. Saul expressed emotion. He acknowledged David's righteousness and spoke words that sounded like remorse. But temporary sorrow did not erase the history, and emotion did not immediately become durable change. David did not use Saul's tears as a reason to abandon wisdom. After sparing Saul, he still went his way. Mercy answered the opportunity for revenge. It did not require restored access. Beloved, do not use this extreme conflict to make every difficult relative into Saul. A tense conversation, an unwanted opinion, or an ordinary family disagreement is not the same as persistent destructive conduct. Let the example remain proportionate. David's circumstances involve repeated pursuit and grave danger. This story does not give you permission to dramatize discomfort, condemn motives you cannot know, or treat correction as persecution. But where conduct repeatedly proves unsafe, you may refuse retaliation, speak with respect, and still decline proximity. Honor does not mean secrecy about harm. Honor does not mean compliance with destructive demands. Honor does not require denial, unrestricted availability, or silence that allows the pattern to continue. Sometimes honor is shown by refusing contempt, while also refusing exposure. I do not condemn you for stepping away from what has not changed. Bring your anger to me. Refuse fantasies of humiliation and repayment. Tell the truth without cruelty. Seek safety without turning distance into a weapon. You are not punishing someone merely because you will no longer stand in the place where they repeatedly injure you. David shows you that forgiveness can coexist with continued separation when danger persists and repentance does not become visible. But not every question of access arises from a crisis. Sometimes love must discern whom to trust with time, disclosure, and closeness in ordinary life. For that, look next to Jesus, whose perfect love was never careless entrustment. My beloved child, look now to Jesus, and let his life teach you that wise access is not the enemy of genuine love. He welcomed the suffering, received sincere questions, spoke truth, and showed compassion without measuring human worth by usefulness or agreement. Yet John 2:24 says that Jesus did not entrust himself to everyone. His love was perfect, but his trust was not indiscriminate. Do you see? Caring for a person and confiding in that person are not the same act. Compassion does not require equal disclosure. Kindness does not require unlimited time. Forgiveness does not grant every relative the same nearness, influence, or knowledge of your private life. Love may remain open, while access is measured according to truth, character, purpose, and wisdom. Jesus also withdrew. Luke 5:16 tells you that he often went away to solitary places and prayed. He did not answer every demand by remaining constantly available. He stepped away from noise, expectation, and human urgency to be restored in communion with me. His withdrawal was not loveless abandonment. It protected the clarity and obedience from which his service flowed. There were moments when Jesus answered directly, moments when he would not accept a manipulative frame, moments when he departed from hostility, and moments when he limited what he disclosed. He did not treat sincere need, misunderstanding, attempted control, and open hostility as though they were identical. Love remained constant, but his response changed according to what stood before him. Therefore, beloved, do not make constant availability the proof of holiness. You are not required to answer every message immediately, reveal every private struggle, enter every argument, or offer the same closeness to everyone. Time can be offered selectively. Disclosure can be earned through reliability. Meetings can occur in settings that support peace. Proximity can be reduced when interaction repeatedly becomes dishonest, coercive, or harmful. But examine your purpose. Protective distance preserves truth, peace, prayer, and faithful obedience. Vindictive withdrawal tries to create distress. It withholds communication so another person will suffer, pursue, panic, or submit. One says, I will not participate in this conduct. The other secretly says, I will make you feel what I felt. The outward silence may appear similar, but the inward aim is different. Do not use Jesus as permission to avoid accountability, evade every uncomfortable conversation, or punish relatives while calling it discernment. Sometimes, love requires an honest answer. Sometimes, maturity requires listening to correction. Wisdom does not label all discomfort unsafe. It responds to each situation truthfully. Forgiveness still governs the heart. Reconciliation still requires mutual participation. Trust still grows through tested character. Access still determines what closeness is appropriate. In Jesus, you see these distinctions held together without coldness. You may love generously without entrusting yourself carelessly. You do not prove love by abandoning the wisdom I am teaching you. Now this biblical pattern is complete. The next task is practical. Name the behavior, state the limit, choose what you will do if it continues, and then watch the fruit without manipulation or spiritual theatrics. My beloved child, begin with what can be observed. Do not say, you are evil, when the truth you can name is, when I disagree, you raise your voice, insult me, and continue after I ask you to stop. Identify the recurring conduct, its effect, and the conditions required for conversation or contact to continue. You do not need a verdict on someone's entire character in order to make a truthful decision about your participation. Choose the smallest limit that adequately protects truth, peace, and safety. Ordinary friction may require a direct conversation, a change of subject, or a shorter visit. A repeated pattern may require limited disclosure, meetings in calmer settings, or a pause in contact. Do not make every wound require permanent separation, but do not make a small boundary carry a danger it cannot contain. Then speak about what you will do. You may say, if shouting begins, I will leave, and we can speak again when voices are calm. You may say, I am not willing to discuss that subject, but I am not condemning you as a person. You may end a call when insults begin, decline another financial request, withhold private information that has repeatedly been misused, meet only where support is available, or pause contact when respectful interaction has become impossible. Do you see? A boundary does not say, I will force you to change. It says, if this conduct occurs, this is how I will respond. Another person may dislike your decision, misunderstand it, or refuse to agree with it. Their agreement is not what makes the limit valid. When communication is safe, explain it briefly and calmly. Do not exhaust yourself with endless arguments, because you hope the person losing access will finally grant you permission to protect it. Choose only a response you can carry out. Do not threaten consequences meant to frighten, shame, or provoke pursuit. Do not announce distance dramatically and then abandon it whenever guilt rises. Follow through quietly and consistently. Let your action teach what repeated explanations could not make clear. Afterward, observe what follows. Does the person respect the limit without searching for ways around it? Do they accept responsibility without shifting blame onto your sensitivity, memory, or tone? Is damaged conduct repaired? Is there patience with the time required to rebuild confidence? Does consistency endure? Access may change when these things become sustained, but tears, promises, pressure, or one peaceful encounter are not the same as tested fruit. When fear, dependency, children, money, housing, or safety complicate the decision, do not carry it alone. Seek wise counsel from a mature pastor, qualified counselor, trusted advocate, or appropriate local service. Where there is coercion, violence, stalking, or credible danger, move toward immediate safety and seek professional or emergency support available where you live. In such circumstances, documentation and outside help may be part of wisdom, not betrayal. I am not teaching you to control another will. I am teaching you to govern your own participation with clarity. Let the limit be specific, proportionate, enforceable, and free from the desire to punish. But remember, beloved, even the wisest arrangement outside you cannot create freedom within you. A person may no longer enter your home and still occupy your thoughts through rehearsed resentment. Once the boundary is clear, another work remains. The distance must protect you without allowing bitterness to possess you. My beloved child, distance can interrupt the pattern, but it cannot by itself quiet every memory. Do not condemn yourself because grief remains after the limit is established. Tears are not bitterness. Lament is not revenge. Anger at wrongdoing is not a spiritual failure, and disappointment over the family you hope to have is not proof that you have refused forgiveness. Bring these things honestly before me. I do not ask you to heal by pretending nothing was lost. Bitterness begins when the wound becomes the center from which you interpret yourself, the offender, and every future relationship. It grows when you rehearse repayment, repeat imaginary arguments, or build your identity around what was done to you. Then the person may be far away and still govern your inner life. Their conduct becomes the voice that shapes your mornings, enters new relationships, and decides whether tenderness will ever be safe again. Beloved, surrender the right to personally repay. As Romans 12 teaches, do not avenge yourself, leave judgment with me. This does not mean justice must disappear. Consequences may remain. Truthful disclosure may remain. Accountability may remain. Records that protect you or others may remain. The boundary may remain. Forgiveness releases your demand to become the one who makes them suffer. It does not require you to obstruct rightful protection or call unresolved harm harmless. Do not demand instant numbness from your heart. Forgiveness is an obedient direction, and sometimes you must choose that direction again when a memory returns, when another consequence appears, or when grief rises on a day you thought would be easier. The returning pain does not prove that every earlier surrender was false. It may simply reveal another place that needs to be brought into the light. Pray honestly. Tell me what was taken, what was damaged, what you cannot recover, and what you still fear. Ask me to judge rightly. Ask me to protect those who are vulnerable. You may ask for blessing without pretending trust exists. Pray that the person encounters truth, repentance, and mercy. Then ask me to free you from hatred, from fantasies of humiliation, and from the need to see their ruin before you permit yourself to live. Remember this clearly. Releasing bitterness does not delete evidence, reopen access, abandon accountability, or expose anyone to renewed harm. Memory can become wisdom without becoming a weapon. You may remember the pattern so that you recognize it, respond sooner, and refuse to carry it into other relationships. Keep what the wound taught you about truth, character, and safety, but refuse to keep drinking what would make you resemble the injury. Sometimes distance becomes a spacious place where your breathing steadies, your thinking clears, and your life is no longer organized around another person's conduct. Do not claim certainty about why every separation occurred, and do not make reunion the proof that healing succeeded. The relative may change, or may not. Reconciliation may become possible, or remain unfinished. Your freedom does not have to wait for their transformation. Release revenge, retain wisdom, grieve truthfully, and let peace begin within the boundaries that safety still requires. My beloved child, now let the truth become simple enough to carry. Forgive without denying what happened. Pursue reconciliation where truth and mutual willingness make repair possible. Rebuild trust only as responsibility and consistent conduct become visible. Give access according to present reality, and maintain the boundary or safe distance that wisdom requires. These are not competing forms of obedience. Held together, they are mature love. Remember Joseph. Cautious trust was able to become generous restoration because mercy remained alive and change became visible. Remember David. Mercy remained clean, even while necessary distance continued. Remember Jesus. Perfect love did not require indiscriminate entrustment. Let these patterns settle the argument within you. Tenderness does not require carelessness. Discernment does not require contempt. I release you from the assignment of fixing your relative through endless access. Your availability cannot manufacture repentance, and your exhaustion cannot produce another person's maturity. I also release you from the burden of proving forgiveness by returning before safety, trust, or conduct has changed. Forgiveness is not measured by how quickly you place yourself near the same pattern. It is revealed in the surrender of revenge, the refusal of hatred, and the willingness to obey truthfully. Keep the future open, but do not force it. Some relationships may heal through confession, patience, changed conduct, and slowly restored confidence. Some may remain limited. Some may require distance for longer than you hoped. You do not need to announce today what every future year must contain. Watch the fruit. Respond to reality. Let tomorrow's access be decided by tomorrow's truth. Now come before me, without defending either closeness or separation. Ask me to reveal any boundaries secretly designed to punish, any access you maintain only because guilt frightens you, any truth you are still softening, and any grief you have not entrusted to me. Ask for the next faithful step, not control over the entire outcome. Pause. Pray. If a limit must be spoken, make it clear, calm, and proportionate. Write it first. If that helps you speak without accusation, communicate it safely. Seek wise support when fear, dependency, danger, or confusion makes the path difficult. Then follow through without drama, observe what comes next, and surrender the other person's response to me. Their anger does not automatically make your boundary wrong. Their apology does not automatically make restored access wise. Let sustained fruit, not pressure, guide what changes. Beloved, leave your heart open to my correction, the future open to genuine change, and the present guarded by wisdom. You may hope without pretending. You may grieve without hating. You may forgive while consequences remain, love while distance continues, and welcome restoration if truth and tested character make room for it. I do not ask you to become hard in order to become safe. Remain tender, but do not remain unguarded. Entrust justice to me, govern your participation faithfully, and release the ending you cannot control. Be still now. You are not responsible for carrying both sides of the relationship. Take the next honest step. Place the rest in my hands, and walk in peace.